I've seen it before. I've seen it all before.
That was another time, Mr. Gans. Another place. Another kind of people. That doesn't go here.
And that's what we said, too. They were brown scum. Temporary insanity. Part of the passing scene. Too monstrous to be real. So, we ignored them. Or laughed at them. Because we couldn't believe that there were enough insane people to walk alongside of them. And then one morning, the country woke up from an uneasy sleep. The wild animals had changed places with us in the cage.
This is a portrait of a group that blames others for the problems they created. A group who feed off self-delusions and perpetually hungry for want of control and greatness in their diets. And like some predecessors, they search for something to explain this hunger. The something they look for and find is in a sewer. In their own twisted and distorted lexicon, they blame others and cancel those that disagree with their views. But over this episode, I will show a different message, a message you may not have heard before, in a strange shadowland called the Gaslighting.
Front page of the Telegraph with a plane taking off to Rwanda. That's my dream. That's my dream. It's
when
my
will that
obsession.
happen?
This is Suella Braverman, and she's a proponent of some right-wing ideology involving migration into the UK. And in this episode, I intend to dissect her using an episode of the Twilight Zone from 1963 to emphasise my point on the rhetoric she's using and the dangers of it. Just have a listen to this speech at the beginning of the Twilight Zone episode, involving a young right-winger looking to be the new leader of America.
How do you move a mob? How do you excite them? How do you make them feel as one with you?
Join them?
Yes. When you speak to them as if you were a member of the mob. Speak to them in their language, on their level. Make their hate your hate. If they are poor, talk to them of poverty. If they are afraid, talk to them of their fears. And if they are angry, Mr. Verma, if they are angry, give them objects for their anger. But most of all, the thing that is most of the essence, Mr. Verma, is that you make this mob an extension of yourself. Say to them things like, they call us hate mongers. They say we're prejudiced. They say we're biased. They say we hate minorities. Minorities. Understand the term, neighbors. Minorities. Should I tell you who are the minorities? Should I tell you? We are the minorities. That way, Mr. Foreman. Started that way.
What the episode brilliantly does is show how Hitler used language, as well as also the body language that he uses, to be impassioned and push forward his agenda, which is essentially to create an opposition, an enemy that people can get behind. Have a listen to this from Suella Braverman. And as you watch this, think about who is in charge, who has made these decisions and allowed all of this to happen. Is it the people in the boats, or is it the people in charge?
I'll tell you what the real world impact on your viewers is. It's 45,000 people who have arrived here illegally.
Refugees are not illegal. Refugees have to be processed, and then it is a determination of the courts as to whether or not they've arrived here illegally. Most statistics will show you that the judges are able to say that 84% of the people coming here are refugees.
Last year in small boats, sometimes coming here on a fatal journey, tragically. It's £6 million a day being spent on hotel accommodation.
The reason for that hotel accommodation being spent is because of several reasons created by the government. One, they've reduced the pay of the people processing the refugees. Two, they are not constructing housing both for people and for refugees and processing centres. This has created a giant backlog, which means that people are being forced into hotels and the government is having to spend money on these people instead of giving them work, which means they'd be contributing to society.
In cities and towns around the United Kingdom, it's 100,000 cases waiting for a decision in our system, during which time we have to accommodate and support people at huge cost to the taxpayers. £3 billion a year spent on this of taxpayers' money. I think those are the real-world impacts in the United Kingdom on the British taxpayer. We need to stop the boats so we can stop that problem progressing.
Making out that they're the ones that are the victims, not the refugees. Note what he said at the beginning in 1963 and what she's just done there. Let's go into a little bit more detail about that interview, because we'll see that the presenters tear into Braverman.
45,000 in boat crossings in the past year. You say there are 100 million people displaced around the world and likely billions more eager to come here if possible.
Where have we heard this before?
You are on the front page of The Observer this morning, warning that 1 million people may come here from Turkey in the next 8 years, which is strange because very few people expect Turkey to join the EU in the next 8 years.
I think it's very likely that they will.
On what planet is that likely, and how is that not inflammatory language? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you very much for the invitation to join you this morning. There are potentially 100 million people around the world who are currently displaced. That's an estimate provided for by the UN.
We also know that, according to the UN, 84% of those people will go to a neighbouring country, leaving 16% to filter out to the rest of the world.
Many of them are heading to the United Kingdom. We saw over 45,000 people come here on small boats alone.
What did she say earlier?
Currently displaced.
That's right, they're displaced. That means they're refugees.
There are 100 million displaced people worldwide. That is true. Only a quarter of them have left their own country.
So a quarter have left, so that's 25 million. And out of that 25 million, 84% will remain in the country next door to their country.
So even the 100 million figure doesn't hold up, let alone the billions that you have flagged in the Daily Mail this morning.
I think we can we can argue about the numbers of the millions of people around the world who would like to come in the United Kingdom.
It's not an argument. Only 26 million have even left their own country.
That's the same Daily Mail that in 1938 wrote this. What I find worse is that Suella Braverman claims that she is married to someone of Jewish origin and that they had Jewish parents, yet she's happy to write an article in the Daily Mail. And again, it seems to be attacking migrants almost 100 years later.
But it is a fact that we are dealing with tens of thousands, and you have used the word billions. And I think that people want you to explain the justification for the use of the word billions when it is a fact that there's only tens of thousands have made their way here on the boats.
I'll tell you what.
And again, this ties into the warnings that were coming out of this Twilight Zone episode in 1963. Braverman's language is inflammatory. It is inciting hate, and we've even seen it in Liverpool recently, where people were saying similar things to what Braverman had said.
But not again. It mustn't happen again. We can't let it. We simply can't let it happen again.
And in this particular episode, one person steps forward saying they will not allow this to happen again. And we see something similar within the UK. Have a listen to this confrontation with a Holocaust survivor and Suella Braverman.
I am a child survivor of the Holocaust. In 1943, I was forced to flee my birthplace in Belgium, went across war-torn Europe and dangerous seas until I finally was able to come to the UK in 1947. Now, when I hear you using words against refugees like swarms and an invasion, I am reminded of the language used to dehumanize and justify the murder of my family and millions of others. Why do you find the need to use that kind of language?
And to be absolutely clear, the words that the Holocaust survivor was referencing there are actually in Adolf Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, and he uses the words swarm, invasion, plague to describe foreigners and Jewish populations.
I won't apologise for the language that I used to demonstrate the scale of the problem. That we mustn't shy away from saying there is a problem. I will not shy away from saying we have a problem with people exploiting that generosity, breaking our rules and undermining our system.
I've heard it before. I've heard it 1,000 times before. In Munich, in Berlin, on 100 different street corners. It was drivel then, and it is drivel now. Well, let me tell you about this one. About the breed, the species. They're all alike. They're all alike. Problem children. Sick, sad neurotics who take applause like a needle.
Don't let him do this. Put him down. Put him down.
Yeah, put me down. Put me down. Shut me up. Stifle me. Why don't you?
And it is a perfect segue because we now talk about Gary Lineker and the tweet that he sent. There is no huge influx. We take far fewer refugees than other major European countries. This is just an immeasurably cruel policy directed at the most vulnerable people in language that is not dissimilar to that used by Germany in the 1930s. And I'm out of order. And I've demonstrated that language on a couple of occasions. I've shown it within the Daily Mail. Which obviously isn't in Germany, but it is in the 1930s. And I've also shown it from it being in Mein Kampf, a book that was published actually in the 1920s. And what Gary is trying to say here is that language can create further problems. This was posted January 27th, 2021 by the Auschwitz Museum. The hatred slowly developed from ideas, words, stereotypes and prejudice through legal exclusion, escalating violence and dehumanization. The words plague and swarm suggest there's some sort of infestation, insects, not humans. The word invasion denotes the idea that they are the enemy.
I won't apologise for the language that I used to demonstrate the scale of the problem. That we mustn't shy away from saying there is a problem. I will not shy away from saying we have a problem with people exploiting that generosity, breaking our rules and undermining our system.
The same language used in Mein Kampf, she won't apologise for using.
Currently displaced.
Yet she knows that they've been displaced, therefore making them refugees. She knows that the numbers are lower. She knows that they're not an invading force. And she knows that they're humans, not insects.
I know him. I know the type. The point of finger. He's kind, Mr. Bulmer. He's kind and dangerous. They talk. They think. They plant a seed. They hold us back.
And in many ways, that is exactly what they did with Gary Lineker. They made an example of him. They put pressure on the BBC. They tried to remove him, and it's now completely backfired. It seems the government never learns when it comes to dealing with footballers. They always lose. And in this particular case, a group of 36 Tory MPs and peers have written to the BBC chief demanding that Gary either be sacked or investigated. However, within a day of that coming out from the Express, it's reported that Sunak is calling on the BBC to resolve the row, which means he's had to stab in the back his own MPs. The fact is, we've got some dark times in the UK at the moment, with people attacking migrants, people attacking foreigners, hate crime up. And all I can do is leave you on a final note, that of the Twilight Zone.
He's alive. He's alive so long as these evils exist. Remember that when he comes to your town. Remember it when you hear his voice speaking out through others. Remember it when you hear a name called, a minority attacked, any blind, unreasoning assault on a people or any human being. He's alive because through these things, we keep him alive. Where will he go next? This phantom from another time, this resurrected ghost of a previous nightmare. Chicago, Los Angeles, Miami, Florida, Vincennes, Indiana, Syracuse, New York. Any place, every place. Where there's hate, where there's prejudice, where there's bigotry.
And on that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of those who support this channel and allow it to keep on going and growing. If you'd like to help this channel, click that like button or subscribe button. All of it helps the channel grow, and it's all for free. And on that note, thanks for listening. Bye for now.